Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we are doing a spoiler review of Matt Dinniman's new book, Operation Bounce House. This book came out about a month ago, and it is a standalone sci-fi story that takes place on the planet of New Sonora, where we follow a group of farmers as they are surprised one day to find a robot with a strange voice calling out from it, and they begin to realize that there is something taking place on the planet called Operation Bounce House, where they're going to have to fight, literally, to defend their homes and to survive this invasion of robots from Earth. And so I want to get into the spoilers, get into the things in this book that worked for me, the things in this book that didn't work for me, and also help you hopefully decide if Operation Bounce House is a good book for you to pick up. If you are someone that likes movies like Ready Player One, Avatar, Small Soldiers, survival video games, then I would say a lot of the things that Matt does in this book are probably going to work for you. He uses a lot of pop culture references, and you can see his influences come out in his writing. And so if those are things that you relate to, then I think you might really like this book. To me, this book felt like a 2000s summer blockbuster. You go with your family and your friends to the movie theater, you got your popcorn, your drink, your candy, you sit down, you watch this movie, and as everything is unfolding on the screen, you're having a great time, you're loving it, you're like, this is really funny, whoa, that explosion was wild, this is crazy, and then you kind of get to the end of it and you're like, okay, that was good. And you're not really like so invested or so tied to the story. That's at least how I felt coming out of the book. I would give this book a 3 out of 5 rating. I would say it is good. It had some great moments. It had some characters that I really liked, but then also there were just a couple pieces that didn't really work for me. So I want to just dive right in and talk about those things. One of the things that really works for me, that I really am glad that Matt wrote this book and that I read it, is the fact that this is standalone. When you get to the end of this book, you will realize like this is a standalone story. And that is becoming more and more rare in the sci-fi and fantasy realm of books. Everything is a trilogy or even longer. And so when authors are putting out new books and new stories, it's like, I better buckle up. When is this going to be completed? How long do I need to invest into this? And thankfully, what Matt has written here is just a complete standalone story. It exists in itself. I don't think there's going to be an Operation Bounce House 2. I actually would be really disappointed if there was, because it is a pretty complete story. And so I'm thankful that he did that. One of the other things that worked for me is the way that Matt writes artificial intelligence. If you've read his other series, Dungeon Crawler Carl, then you know how he uses the AI to drive the story forward. And in Operation Bounce House, there is an AI that is on the planet of New Sonora that is working on the farm that Oliver and his family own. And the AI's name is Roger. And Roger makes this book for me, honestly. Roger feels like C-3PO in some instances, but if he was also your nanny and school teacher, but then also knew how to defend against a massive wave of enemies attacking your home and how to prepare for this. And so the wittiness that Matt uses for Roger is great. Roger is really, I would argue, the star of this story, even though the point of view is from Oliver's perspective. I would say Roger is who makes this book. Without Roger, I don't know that any of our characters would have survived or been able to make it to the end of the story. And so Roger really makes this story for me. And another thing that really works for me is that the human characters that live on New Sonora, that are defending their home, that are fighting, they are not good at fighting. They are farmers, they are agriculture people, even though they're living in the future. And so they are not soldiers, they are not trained or equipped for this. And the reason that they're able to survive and to continue to fight off the waves of these mechs coming every night is because of Roger. He is the one that is helping them win. He's building the defenses. He's telling them what to do. He is the orchestrator of everything that is happening, and we're just experiencing the story through Oliver's point of view. And so I liked that component of it, that Oliver and his friends, they're actually not very good at fighting at all, and most of the fighting that's taken place kind of ends up being Roger against the mechs, but then also just kind of luck, which would be me. If I was in this situation, if I was Oliver, I would not be great at fighting. I would not know what to do. And so it's interesting to have that view. I appreciate that they didn't just all of a sudden become these world-class soldiers that were taking out these mechs and doing all this. Felt very grounded in that way. And so those are just some of the things that I like and I appreciate that Matt did in this story. The last thing I'll say that I like and appreciate is the end. There is a long clip, if you'll say, because there are these clips that play throughout the book, but it is from Roger's perspective and his view of humanity. And you can see little influences that Matt has and what he thinks of AI and where we're headed as a culture. But he really saves that for the end. And it doesn't feel politically charged in any way. It doesn't feel like he's thumping you over the head. But he just addresses like, hey, we as people, we kind of struggle with empathy when it comes to the people around us. We're really good at being empathetic about people we see online, but when it comes to people in our daily life that are around us that are different than us, we often struggle with being empathetic and caring for them just because they're different. And so I appreciated that view that he gave Roger of humanity and just how that ends the story. I think it's a good kind of bow onto the story. Now I want to get into some things that really didn't work for me in this story. And one of them is the problem of time. And so the way that this book is formatted and written is over 5 days. And you know when each day is starting because Matt has put a page in that says day 1 of 5, day 2 of 5, day 3 of 5. And for me, this isn't my favorite plot element that authors use when we're tied to time restraints. I feel like the story doesn't have the chance to breathe because of these restrictions on what's happening in the world. And I understand like that's how he chose to do it and that's how it plays out. But for me, knowing it was going to be 5 days, I knew obviously like, okay, great, we're making it to day 5. So days 1, 2, 3, and 4 didn't really feel as important to me as much as I was reading it because I knew day 5 was going to be the main part of the story. And I would say a lot of the huge storytelling pieces really actually take place at the end of the book in day 5. And so it kind of gives it this feel that days 1 through 4 are just kind of happening. You're being introduced to ideas and things, but they're really not as important as day 5 is. And so I wish there was a way to not have the restrictions of time in the story, just because it just feels like the story can't breathe. And because of the time restrictions that Matt has put in here, it just felt really difficult to be able to spend any longer moments with characters. It was very much moving to the next thing, moving to the next thing, moving to the next thing. And so obviously I cared about Oliver. I cared about his sister Lulu. I cared about Rosita and Sam and Axel and Tito and all of the other friends. I cared about Mr. and Mrs. Gonzalez. I cared about these different characters, but it just felt like we just didn't really get to know them enough. So you feel like I want to know these characters more. And that's one thing I think Matt does so well in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series is you start caring for all of these characters and all these people. And I know those are multi-books in that series, but with this one, it just felt super fast-paced, but to the detriment of knowing a lot about the characters. Other thing that didn't really work for me that I thought was interesting, but really just was kind of frustrating too, was there are clips that play throughout the book that are recordings that Rosita's done throughout her life of interviewing different people on New Sonora. And as you're reading the notes that basically a computer or AI has taken from these interview clips, there are a ton of things that talk about them being redacted, like you're reading it as an earthling and the government has hidden things from it. So that's cool, but the thing I didn't like is that you never find out what's been redacted. And so there are some pretty key things that it says are redacted, especially at the end of the book, talking about future plans and other things that could happen in this universe going forward if Operation Bounce Houses would continue, or how they would try to control populations on different planets. And multiple times in that final post, it just says redacted. And so I get what he's doing, but man, I actually really wanted to know. By the end, it's like, dude, I want to know what all of these redacted things are, because I think he has thought them up. I believe that Matt has them, but he just used this storytelling piece to kind of keep those things back from the reader, which is just a preference and choice, and that's totally okay. And then the last thing that didn't really work for me, which is a storytelling element that Matt often uses in his other books, like Dungeon Crawler Carl, which is this idea that all of the characters that we're reading about know how something's going to play out in this bigger plan that's happening, but we as the reader don't know. And usually when Matt does this, we see it unfold, and then he tells us how it all played out and how the characters set it up. And so in day 5, the Rhythm Mafia decides we're going to put on a concert. We are going to stand against what Apex is doing, and we're going to not play their game anymore, which I love that idea. But then as we read through and see it happen, we find out, wait a second, they are projecting the concert from the pub that is in a different town, and they've played this trap, this trick on all of the mechs and everybody there. But then he doesn't go into any detail like he would in Dungeon Crawler Carl of how they set it up and how it happened. And there's like some small breadcrumbs throughout, like we know Rosita and some of the bumblebees were building some type of escape plan and some type of path for them to get out. And so you kind of have to connect dots and assume this is how it happened. But for them to pull off this kind of trap and trick just seemed like almost above their knowledge of what they could do or what they would have been capable of pulling off, based on the fact that they're farmers and what they've been doing the whole time in this story. And so maybe Roger told them, maybe it was his grand idea of projecting from the pub, but we don't really know. And so that type of storytelling element, I think, works great in Dungeon Crawler Carl, because we know how they're talking and coordinating and they have to do it. But here it didn't really work for me, just because we didn't actually get the full explanation of here's how it played out and here's how they planned it. So that's just one thing that I wish would have been done different. But I'm curious from you, have you read Operation Bounce House? What were your thoughts on this story? Maybe it's a 5 out of 5 for you. That's awesome. Tell me in the comments why you love this book, if you're curious about reading this book, or we can talk about the things that maybe didn't work for you. So give me your thoughts down below.